And now it's time for one of our guests. You may know Phil Keoghan as the host of The Amazing Race, but now he is off on a new adventure. Phil is immersing himself in some incredible new experiences as the host of National Geographic's critically acclaimed series, Explorer. The new season of the Emmy Award-winning show will feature breakthrough stories including cloning, nuclear threat, Mexican ruins, and whale sharks. Let's take a look.
But the whale sharks are being uncooperative. One after the other swims away, and then this.
Whoa, just got hit right there.
The force of the blow rips Raphael's weight belt right off him. You okay?
Yeah, I'm okay.
This is one tenacious marine scientist.
I'm not done yet.
With the whale sharks likely to leave the surface any minute, Raphael comes up with a plan B.
Fortunately, I just have 2 hands, so I need you to help me.
Okay.
So this time, I will ask you to hold the tag against the dorsal fin.
Hold it in position.
That's it.
So we'll just give it one more shot. It's now or never. The sharks are beginning to dive.
Another one's gone. We're running out of options here.
We're 0 for 13 when Raphael makes a move.
Okay, this might be a good one.
Always.
Yeah. Everyone, please give a warm Build Brunch welcome to Phil Keoghan.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So please tell us, how did you get involved with this show?
Well, look, National Geographic Explorer goes back to 1985, way before you guys were even born. But when I first came to America in '92, it was the one show that I really gravitated towards. I just loved it. You know, when I hear that music, da 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 da, I get excited, and I just always wanted to work on the show. That was 25 years ago, and I actually pitched a show to them when I was just a young filmmaker, and never thought in a million years that one day I'd get a chance to host the show. And yeah, now we travel all around the world. It's the longest running documentary series on television. It's won, I think, almost 60 Emmys. It's won a bunch of awards. And the show is all about exploring the world and appreciating different cultures and seeing how people interact with the world. And so I feel very honored to be involved with it.
Yeah, so how does that feel? It's the longest running documentary series on TV. Was there a lot of pressure? I was a host for a show that was a long running show, and I took over for some greats, and people like old generations, the VH1's Top 20 Countdown.
Oh, I love that. I worked for VH1 back in the day. I did Hollywood Hits and Inside the Music. You remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Back in the day?
I love that.
In the early 90s. But anyway, yeah, no, I know what you mean.
There's a lot of pressure.
It's a lot of pressure. I mean, it's tough, but I work with a team of world-class storytellers, and so I introduce their stories, and the stories are just so rich and interesting. I'm a piece of the, you know, I'm a part of the team. Yes, I am the host, and that's the person that you see out front. But as you know, like any show, like I just met your showrunner, it's all about having really solid people, you know, not just sitting on the couch, but behind there making that show. So
no, we do this alone.
Yeah, that's what I thought you'd say. But your showrunner said it's really that you guys are basically just doing what she says.
Yeah, we are.
Right? Isn't that true?
Yeah, or else we don't get fed.
No, but there is a pressure, and there's a high standard to reach, and thankfully, you know, I work with a really incredible team, and we get to tell really good stories. And right now, you know, I also host the Amazing Race. Right now, looking out into the world and appreciating different cultures and different people and different walks of life is more important to me now than it has ever been. You know, and thankfully, when I started in television, I started hosting when I was only 19 years old. I've been lucky enough to shoot and film in over 130 countries. Wow. The difference between when I started in television and now, and the way that you can share stories, is just so different. People didn't know where Turkey was. Right. You know, now you'll see a YouTube clip from somebody from Turkey, and you'll go, and it just puts it on the map. So we live in a really cool time. You guys are coming into the industry. I only say that because you guys are all so young, but you're just coming in at a really cool time for storytelling, and for, you know, it gives me hope. I have a 23-year-old daughter. She's getting into television. She wants to be a storyteller, and it gives me hope to think that you guys are you know, you're picking up the flag and you're running, and this is a really crucial time for us to really be thinking of ourselves as part of a big community rather than, you know, America is a great country, and I love America, and that's why I moved from New Zealand to America. But you know what? The world is pretty cool too. And there's some other cool cultures out there and cool people.
Absolutely. And you've had some really exciting adventures on the show, like swimming with sharks. What are some of your favorites that come to mind?
Well, the things that I always really love are just when I can connect with really cool people. Like I met a scientist, a young scientist by the name of Andreas, who is going into the Amazon, into the heart of the Amazon. He's connected to the indigenous people there, and he's studying this boiling river, which is this natural phenomenon where the water's 200 degrees. Like, if you fall in there, boom, you're dead. And there are extremophiles that live there. And there's this young scientist, and he's all so enthusiastic. He's like 32 years old. So I love meeting people like that. I met a young team that go and do research with bears. So they tranquilize these mother bears, the mother bear, and then they go in and they tag the little babies because they're monitoring all the bears in Maine. And this young woman, they tranquilize this mother bear, and she just like jumps right into the bear cave and grabs the babies, and she's like, all right, Phil, it's your turn. And there's this little hole about this big, and she's like, come on, what's wrong with you? You know, and I have to crawl back there in the mother's mouth with the big teeth sticking out. I'm like, this is not a good time for mama to wake up. But I love that. I just did an inside piece on NASCAR. You mentioned the whale sharks.
Yeah.
These are unbelievable creatures, the mysterious creatures about the size of a school bus, and we don't know anything about them. And so there's this scientist, Raphael, who's tagging them with these GPS tags so they can see where they pop up and down, because they can disappear, they can die for years.
Yeah.
And
they migrate over huge
distances.
Yeah.
But we don't know where they mate or how they congregate or why there's no babies and every now and again they pop up in certain places around the world and they come to feed, but we don't really know anything about them.
Wow, that's very interesting.
And they have this really cool pattern. They're the world's largest fish. They are a shark, so they won't eat you. They're big 5 foot. The mouth is like essentially the size of this table, and they have a throat that is the size of a golf ball. And they suck in all this plankton and filter it out hour on end to get the food that they need. And so to be in the water with them and to be with the scientists and see that there are people out there who are really doing cool stuff out in the world, gives you hope about the world. It's kind of cool.
I got to swim with them in Mexico.
You did?
Yeah.
Off the Yucatan Peninsula?
Yeah, and they tell you, like, you have to get out of their way.
Yes.
They're not going to get out of your way, and I got hit in the face with the tail, and it was powerful.
Right. Well, that's amazing that you did that.
Yeah.
But did that just, like...
It was insane, yeah.
It's, like, life-changing.
Life-changing.
You see a creature that big. What? Just out of interest, what inspired you to go do it?
I was down in Cancun, so it was Isla Mujeres. Around there, they come. You know, like that's how I knew they migrate, because they only go certain places in the world.
Just like a 3-week window.
Yeah. So I was down there during that time, and I just went. And
well, you're an opportunist, right? Because you're like, you know, I meet people and they say, "Oh, you're so lucky that you get to go do all these things." And I met these people while I was down there at the hotel where we were staying. Yeah. And they were like, oh, you get to travel all around the world and do all these things. And I said, well, you could go dive with the whale sharks as they're sitting there having a margarita at the pool. And they're like, well, yeah. And I'm like,
see, that's me.
Yeah, when you travel, you have to see
Margarita 3, I'm like, yeah, I'll see you at the whale sharks in a second.
You have no idea what you're missing.
I know, but I watch your show and I'm like, wow, it looks cool, but I'm sipping a margarita. But you are a adventurous guy. How did you get into hosting TV?
So my first job, I always loved photography, and my first job was I was at school. I loved stories. I loved acting in plays and anything to do with stories and people. I left home when I was left New Zealand with my parents when I was 2, and I've been traveling. My parents worked in third world countries. As my dad's a scientist, my mom was a teacher, so I always got to meet different people around the world. And so I was fascinated with telling stories. I just wasn't sure how I was going to do it. So my first thing was I wanted to take photographs. I wanted to be a cinematographer. So I trained to be a cinematographer straight out of school, didn't go to college. I went straight into working at a TV station, much to my parents' chagrin, because they were like, you know, what are you doing? You should be going to college. Anyway, we were doing a camera test, and I was behind one of the cameras, and some guy was meant to be testing for a network show in New Zealand, and he didn't turn up. So they knew I could talk a lot. So the guy said, why don't you sit in and try? So I was like, all right. So I jumped in front of the camera, and then I just talked. And I said, what do you want me to do? They said, just tell the story. So I did. And then they said, oh, have you ever thought about, would you be interested in hosting this show? So anyway, at 19, I get this network New Zealand show that had been running for 20 years. And
that's insane.
And so I suddenly was hosting this show. And then there was a show that I did every day called 345 Live. I did that when I was 20. And anybody who came to New Zealand, Arnold Schwarzenegger, I remember I interviewed MC Hammer, Milli Vanilli back in the day.
Wow.
I was interviewing Milli Vanilli, and one of them was twirling their dreadlock live on the air, and the hair, the dreadlock became detached live on the air, and I'm looking at
everything.
So anybody who was anybody, so I did that. And then when I was 23, I hosted a number of different shows. I came to New York, and I was only here 2 weeks, and I got offered a job at MTV. And I was all excited I was going to host this show on MTV. I think it was a show called MTV's Most Wanted. And anyway, I go down to, they tell me, I interviewed with Ted Demme, who was Jonathan Demme's cousin. And I go down to sign up to get the job, and the woman goes, where are you from? I said, I'm from New Zealand. She goes, well, are you an American citizen? I said, no, I'm from New Zealand. And they said, well, where's your documentation? I said, well, I have my passport. She goes, you can't work here with that. She says, do you have a green card? I was like, what's a green card? So I didn't get the job.
Okay.
So then I looked after apartments here in New York for a whole year, and while I was still getting offers jobs back in New Zealand. And then eventually I got a job at VH1. And then FX Networks, when they started up, they had a live daily show that I used to host with Tom Bergeron. And then anyway, the work picked up after that.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Have you written a book or?
That's awesome.
I did write a book. It's called Now, No Opportunity Wasted.
There we go.
8 Ways to Live the Life You Want.
Okay.
And
available now where books are sold.
no, I wrote it. I wrote it back in 2004 when you guys were born. And I did write a book. But I have a podcast, and my whole thing is about. It's called Bucket. Tick it before you kick it is the byline. And my whole thing is I talk to people who are inspirational, who are kick-ass, and who get out in the world and are life, people who are disruptors, game changers, mavericks, disruptors, that sort of thing.
Well, before we get out of here, obviously you've been to, what you said, over 130 countries. So where,
I can't remember all
where is a country that you feel like is sort of underrated or still sort of a hidden gem that we should check out this year?
Well, I love the Caribbean. I spent 8 years living in Antigua as a kid. I guess my favorite sort of distant, faraway place that I've been to was an island called Stromboli, which is a volcano. Isabella Rossellini was born there. It's this 3,000-foot volcano that just comes right out of the Aeolian Sea, which is just north of Sicily. And I took a 5-star chef to the top of that volcano and had a dinner. I got him to cook dinner using the heat of the volcano. Scoffino fish, pasta, and a 150-year-old bottle of balsamic vinegar and a beautiful bottle of wine. This little volcanic island, oh yeah.
So anyone can do that.
Yeah, I was like, so
Listen, find the nearest volcano.
Can I go on Orbitz and book that?
You can't book that, but to me, nothing against any of those places that you could book trips on. Don't do that. Like, have a nice glass of wine, sit down with someone you love and that you like bouncing ideas with, and just brainstorm really cool trips.
Okay.
I did that once with a whiskey taster, and out of that, after a bottle of 18-year-old Glenlivet, I came up with this crazy idea that I was going to putt a golf ball across Scotland, which I did.
Okay.
32 miles a day from Greenock to St. Andrews and finished on the 18th. So sometimes a little drink and some good company will lead to some good ideas. I would suggest that's how you guys brainstorm.
All right, let's do it.
Your next trip.
We're going to do it. Phil, I love you. You're wild. Thank you so much for joining us. And everyone, make sure to check out Explore on Mondays at 6 p.m. on the National Geographic channel.
Yes, thank you.